Confessions. The real reason I hate my mixed-race parents. I was 15 when my parents kicked me out to give my sister her own room. Figure it out, my mom sneered as I stood with my boxes. But what I uncovered next, a shocking secret about my sister, turned our family upside down and changed everything. The small suburban neighborhood in Ohio was picturesque, the kind of place that looked like it was taken straight from a postcard. Rows of two-story houses with tidy front yards lined the street, each home neat and orderly, hiding the turmoil that brewed just beneath the surface. The Carter family home, no exception, stood quietly in the middle of the block, its well-kept exterior masking the deep and unresolved tensions within. Mia Carter, at 15, had lived in this house her entire life. She had spent those years in the shadow of her older sister, Emma, who at 17 seemed to embody everything their parents valued: light skin, a calm demeanor, and an air of approval that came with fitting into the mold. Mia, however, with her dark skin, was always the other. She was never quite right in her parents' eyes, never truly accepted. David, her father, a man of black heritage, held prejudiced beliefs that ran deep, even as he struggled to hide them in the presence of others. Sarah, her mother, a white woman, made no such effort. Her racism was an open, unashamed part of her identity, one that Mia had been forced to endure her entire life. In their eyes, Emma, with her fair skin, was their perfect daughter, the one they showered with affection, the one they had no qualms about loving. Mia, on the other hand, was left on the periphery, never truly a part of their world. The tension in the Carter household had been building for years, but it reached its peak on Emma's 17th birthday. Mia had been excited, hoping for some sort of acknowledgement, some sign that maybe, just maybe, her parents had learned to care for her. But when the day arrived, it became clear that the celebration wasn't for Mia. It was all about Emma. Her room needed to be bigger. Her space needed to be more comfortable. "Mia, you're going to have to move out," Sarah said coldly, her voice sharp as she looked up from the birthday cake she was frosting for Emma. Mia froze, the words hitting her like a punch to the gut. She couldn't believe it. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice shaky. "You heard your mother," David muttered, avoiding Mia's gaze. He wouldn't even look at her, not even as she stood there, trembling, still processing the words. "I'll help you pack your things," Sarah added with an air of finality. "Find somewhere else to stay. You're no longer needed here." It wasn't just the words that cut through Mia. It was the complete lack of care in her mother's voice, the indifference with which she was cast out. Mia's heart broke, her thoughts racing as she gathered a few belongings in boxes. She looked at Emma, expecting some kind of support, some sort of intervention from her sister. But Emma stood there, silent, not meeting her eyes. The same sister who, in the past, had quietly celebrated Mia's birthday in secret. The same sister who had protected her from their parents' wrath. But now, Emma was nowhere to be found in the battle. She was silent, complicit, in Mia's eyes. As she walked out the door with a few belongings in her arms, Mia couldn't help but feel betrayed. The house, which had always been her home, now felt like a foreign place. The memories she once held dear, the fleeting moments of comfort, seemed like lies now, tainted by the cold reality of rejection. She stood in the front yard, clutching the boxes against her chest. Her parents didn't call after her, didn't ask if she was okay, didn't even look back. Mia stood there, feeling the weight of everything that had just happened. The wind blew through the trees, but it did little to calm her. Her eyes burned with unshed tears as she glanced back at the house that she would never be welcome in again. How could they do this to me, she thought, her heart aching. She wasn't the child they had wanted. They hadn't even tried to see her for who she was. She was the other, the one who never belonged. Mia's thoughts flashed to the past when Emma had secretly thrown her a birthday party when she was 9, hiding it from their parents. How Emma had stood up to their father when he had lashed out at Mia for something she didn't even understand. Emma had been the only one who had ever cared, or so Mia thought. But now, standing in the yard, with the cold emptiness of the night surrounding her, Mia realized she had been wrong. Emma had remained silent, and Mia wondered if that silence spoke louder than any words ever could. Did Emma care? Did she love her as she once had, or had Mia truly been alone this whole time? Mia wiped away a tear, feeling the sting of the loss, and turned away from the house. She didn't know where she would go, but she knew she couldn't stay here. Not anymore. Not where she wasn't wanted. This was her beginning. She had no idea where the road would lead, but she knew she had to keep moving forward. She had to find a place where she wasn't the other. A place where she could rebuild herself, piece by piece. Maybe it was time to let go of the hope that things would change with her family and start finding the strength within herself. As Mia walked down the quiet suburban street, carrying her few belongings, she couldn't help but wonder if she would ever find a place to call home again. Mia had no clear idea where she was heading when she left the Carter house, the memory of her parents' indifference still fresh in her mind. The evening was cold, the streets unfamiliar, and the weight of her few belongings heavy in her hands. She had never felt more alone in her life. But amidst the uncertainty, one thought provided her with a sense of direction. Her Aunt Angela, her father's sister, was always warm and kind, even if they didn't see each other often. Mia's heart clenched with hope as she dialed Angela's number on her phone, hoping the woman who had always been a quiet source of comfort would be there for her now. The phone rang twice before Angela's familiar voice greeted her with a soft, welcoming tone. "Mia, is everything all right? You sound off." Mia fought back the urge to break down completely. "Aunt Angela, I need to come to you. Please, I don't know where else to go." There was no hesitation in Angela's response. "Come, Mia. I'm here for you. Always. Just get here safely." The relief that washed over Mia was palpable. For the first time that night, she felt like she had a lifeline to hold on to. Angela's apartment was located in the heart of downtown, just a short bus ride away. The building was old but charming, with its faded red brick walls and a small balcony that overlooked the street. Angela's apartment, nestled on the second floor, was cozy, a warm contrast to the cold outside world. The walls were painted a soft beige, adorned with framed photos of family trips and quiet moments. The scent of freshly brewed coffee lingered in the air, adding to the sense of safety Mia had desperately longed for. Mia arrived in what felt like hours, though it was only a short ride. Angela greeted her at the door with open arms, pulling Mia into a tight hug. The embrace was gentle, but it was the kind of hug that wrapped around her like a promise, offering the first real sense of security she had felt in a long time. "Welcome home," Angela whispered as Mia stepped inside, her eyes scanning the apartment. It wasn't much, but it was enough to feel like she belonged somewhere. As they settled into the small living room, Mia told Angela everything. She recounted the cold dismissal from her parents, her father's refusal to even look at her, Sarah's harsh words. Angela listened intently, never interrupting, her presence steady and calm. "It's not your fault, Mia," Angela said softly once Mia had finished. "You did nothing wrong. I'm so sorry you had to go through that." For the first time, Mia allowed herself to cry. The floodgates opened, and she wept for the years of neglect, for the lost love she had craved from her family, for the pain that had been festering within her for so long. Angela held her, offering comfort with gentle words, reminding Mia that she wasn't alone anymore. After a few minutes, Mia wiped her eyes and pulled away. "Thank you, Aunt Angela." "I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't answered." Angela smiled softly. "I'll always be here for you, and we'll figure this out, together." As Mia settled into the warmth of Angela's home, a new worry began to form in her mind. Her sister, Emma. Mia hadn't spoken to her since she left. She had barely thought about Emma in the chaos of leaving the house, but now that she was away, she couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. The silence from Emma, the sister who had always protected her, hurt more than anything else. Her thoughts were interrupted by a FaceTime call from Emma. The sight of her sister's face made Mia's heart race, and she quickly answered. "Emma," Mia said, her voice thick with emotion. "Mia," Emma replied, her voice shaky. She looked different, pale, a little worn, but there was something in her eyes that Mia couldn't quite place. "I'm sorry," Emma began, her voice trembling. "I didn't know what to do. I didn't want you to get caught up in this. But Mia, I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air like a bomb. Mia felt her heart stop for a moment. What she managed to whisper. Emma nodded, her eyes filling with tears. "I'm pregnant. With Ethan. I didn't want to tell you like this, but I didn't know how else." Mia felt a mixture of relief and fear. She wasn't sure why, but there was something comforting about the fact that Emma had been hiding this secret all along. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the fact that Emma had kept it from their parents. Mia's mind raced as Emma explained. "I asked for my own room, Mia, because I didn't want them to find out like this," Emma said, her voice filled with guilt. "I knew how they'd react. They wouldn't understand, and they'd take it out on you. I didn't want you to be part of that." Mia's heart softened, a small part of her understanding Emma's decision. She could feel Emma's love for her in the words, even if they had been delivered in silence before. "I'm scared, Mia," Emma continued. "I don't know what's going to happen, but I want you to know that I'm not turning my back on you." Mia wiped away the tear that had escaped. "I'm scared too, but I'll be here for you. I promise." Emma's tears fell freely now, the weight of everything crashing down on her. "I don't want you to be mad at me. I didn't know what else to do." "I'm not mad," Mia replied, her voice thick with emotion. I just don't know where we go from here." The two sisters stayed silent for a long moment, both feeling the depth of the unspoken words. Eventually, Emma smiled through her tears. "We'll figure it out. Mia, together. I'll always be here," Mia whispered. "I promise." As the call ended, Mia felt a sense of closeness she hadn't felt in years. Emma had made a choice, one that Mia could understand. The hurt from earlier began to fade, replaced by a small seed of hope. With Angela's unwavering support and Emma's newfound vulnerability, Mia felt like she was slowly putting the pieces of herself back together. Maybe it wasn't perfect. Maybe it wasn't easy. But for the first time in a long time, Mia didn't feel so alone. The air in the Carter household was thick with tension, a storm waiting to break. The morning sunlight filtered through the curtains, but inside, the family's once peaceful home now felt like a battleground. It started with a discovery. Sarah had been cleaning Emma's room when she found the pregnancy vitamins tucked away in the back of a drawer hidden, but not well enough. Sarah's face turned pale with shock, followed by a quick flash of anger. She stormed down the stairs into the living room, the bottle of vitamins clenched in her hand. "David!" she shouted, her voice laced with fury. "David, get down here now!" David came rushing into the living room, his face set in a hard, emotionless mask. When Sarah shoved the bottle into his hands, his eyes narrowed, and he knew instantly what it meant. His daughter, his perfect daughter, had done the unthinkable. "What is this?" Sarah hissed, her voice trembling with disbelief. "What is this?" David. David looked at the vitamins, then at Sarah. His expression remained cold. "Emma," he muttered under his breath, his words full of venom. "She's pregnant, isn't she?" A flash of anger crossed Sarah's face. "Why didn't she tell us? Why is she hiding this? She's ruined everything." David, everything. David's face twisted in frustration as he turned away, unable to look Sarah in the eye. "This isn't right. She needs to fix this. She's not going to bring shame upon this family." Before Sarah could respond, Emma appeared in the doorway, her face pale and filled with fear. The air was electric with the weight of the discovery. She was about to speak when David's voice cut through the tension. "You have to fix this, Emma," David said, his voice low and menacing. "You get rid of it. Now." Emma's eyes widened, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "Dad, please," she started, her voice cracking. "No, no excuses." "You'll ruin everything if you don't," David snapped, his anger spilling over. Sarah, still holding the bottle of vitamins, joined in. "You're going to ruin your future, your reputation. You can't have a baby now, not with your future at risk. This isn't how we raised you, Emma. You're supposed to be perfect, not this." Emma stood there, frozen, as her parents' words crashed down on her. Her heart raced in her chest, and the overwhelming pressure of their demands suffocated her. The walls of the room seemed to close in around her as her father's voice grew louder, more insistent. "Do you hear me?" Emma David shouted, now towering over her. "Get rid of it, or you're out. I won't have this family's name dragged through the mud because of your mistakes." Emma's eyes filled with tears, and she took a step back. The weight of her father's words was unbearable. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Desperate, she turned and ran to her room, slamming the door behind her. Inside, she locked herself in, clutching her stomach as if trying to hold herself together. The overwhelming mix of fear, confusion, and heartbreak swirled within her. She didn't know what to do anymore. From the other side of the door, she heard her parents still arguing, their voices rising in a heated dispute. She pulled out her phone with trembling hands and sent a message to Mia. "Mia, please come. I can't do this. They're going to make me get rid of it. I don't know what to do. Please, I need you." Mia had been pacing Angela's apartment when the message arrived. Her heart dropped as she read it, a feeling of dread and helplessness overtaking her. She knew what she had to do. "Angela, it's Emma," Mia said, her voice breaking. "She's in trouble. I need to go to her." Angela, who had been quietly observing Mia, immediately understood. Without a word, she stood up, grabbed her jacket, and turned to Mia. "We'll go. Let's get her out of there." The drive to the Carter house was fast, but each passing minute felt like an eternity. Mia's thoughts swirled with concern for her sister and anger at their parents for how they had treated her. As they pulled up to the house, Mia's stomach twisted in knots. Angela walked up to the door with determination, her face set in a serious expression. Mia followed close behind, her heart hammering in her chest. Angela knocked loudly, her tone firm when David answered. "You're not going to hurt her again." "David," Angela said, her voice cold but resolute. "If you lay one more hand on her, I'll call Child Protective Services. You're not going to drive your daughter to make a decision like that." "Not again." David's face turned red with anger, but he didn't speak. Sarah appeared in the background, silent but equally tense. "Emma is coming with us," Angela continued, her voice unwavering. "She's not staying in this house any longer. You've done enough damage already." Mia stood there, a sense of power filling her. She was no longer the scared little girl, forced to endure whatever was thrown her way. She was done standing by. Emma was her sister, and she would protect her no matter what. There was a long, tense silence as David and Sarah exchanged glances, each weighing their next move. Finally, David took a step back, his eyes glaring at Angela. But he said nothing. Emma appeared behind the door, her face tear-streaked but determined. She held a small suitcase, ready to leave. "Come on, Emma," Mia said softly, walking toward her sister. "Let's go." As the sisters left the house together, Mia's chest felt tight, but a small part of her felt a sense of pride. They were taking control now. Emma wasn't alone anymore, and Mia wasn't backing down. Angela watched them leave, her eyes filled with a quiet sense of triumph. She had promised to protect Mia, and now she was keeping that promise. The three of them drove to Angela's apartment in silence. The only sound was the soft hum of the car's engine and the occasional sniffle from Emma, who was trying to hold herself together. Mia's thoughts were a whirlwind, but one thing was clear: their family might be broken, but they weren't going to be defeated. The small apartment was filled with the quiet hum of the evening. The soft glow of the yellow lights created a warm, inviting atmosphere, yet the air inside was heavy. Angela had insisted on bringing everyone together to face what had happened. Everyone had to confront the truth. A small wooden table sat in the center of the room, its surface worn but sturdy. It was the place where difficult conversations often took place, and tonight, it would bear witness to the most important one yet. Mia sat at one end of the table, her hands folded in her lap, her gaze fixed on the surface in front of her. She could feel the weight of the past few days pressing down on her shoulders, her father's harsh words, her mother's silence, Emma's brokenness. It was all too much to bear, but this meeting was necessary. They had to confront it all, and Mia knew she had to be strong for both herself and her sister. Emma sat beside her, her eyes downcast, her hands clenched tightly. She hadn't spoken much since they arrived, the enormity of the situation settling heavily on her. Angela, ever the calm presence, sat across from them, her gaze steady as she looked between Mia and Emma. She had organized this meeting not only to confront their parents, but to help Mia and Emma finally begin the process of healing. "I'm glad you both are here," Angela said softly, her voice steady yet warm. "I know this isn't easy, but we need to face everything. It's the only way forward." Mia nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. She wasn't sure she was ready for this confrontation, but it had to happen. Emma's hand brushed against hers, a silent show of solidarity between them. The doorbell rang, breaking the tense silence. It was David and Sarah. Mia's heart raced as she heard them enter, their footsteps hesitant. Angela stood to greet them, her face resolute. "Come in," she said, her tone firm yet kind. David and Sarah stood at the door, visibly uncomfortable. They had come, but neither looked prepared for the weight of the conversation they were about to have. Sarah's eyes were red from crying, her face pale, while David seemed tense, his arms crossed defensively. Angela gestured for them to sit, and they did, on the opposite side of the table. The room felt smaller now, the distance between them all palpable. No one spoke at first. The silence stretched out, broken only by the sound of soft breathing. Mia was the first to break it. She took a deep breath, gathering the courage she had long struggled to find. "You never really saw me, did you?" Her voice shook, but she pressed on. "You always made me feel like I was nothing, like I wasn't enough. I've spent my whole life feeling like I didn't belong in my own family." Her words hit like a punch, the truth hanging in the air. She could feel Emma tense beside her, her own guilt and shame adding to the heaviness of the moment. "Do you remember my birthday last year?" Mia continued, her voice gaining strength. "You didn't even acknowledge it. Emma got everything. She always got everything, and I was always left out, pushed aside, as if I was just there. Never enough. Never good enough." David and Sarah exchanged uncomfortable glances, but neither spoke. Emma shifted in her seat, her eyes still downcast, and then, with a shaky breath, she spoke. I never meant for it to be like that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I always felt like I had to be perfect, like I had to make up for how badly you were treated. Mia, I couldn't fix it. But I thought if I was the perfect daughter, then maybe I could be enough." Emma's words hung in the air, thick with emotion. Mia's heart softened at the confession. She had always known Emma tried to protect her, but hearing her sister admit the weight of the burden she had carried for years was both heartbreaking and eye-opening. "I didn't want to be like them," Emma continued, her voice cracking. "I wanted to be the one who could make things better, but instead, I became part of the problem." Tears welled in Mia's eyes, and for the first time, she felt her anger soften into a kind of understanding. "I know, Em, I know you tried, but you never stood up for me. You just let it happen, and that hurt more than anything." Sarah's voice broke through, soft and trembling. "I didn't know." She started, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I didn't know how much I was hurting you. Mia, I just couldn't deal with the way people looked at you. I didn't want them to judge us, to judge me." She choked on her words, her face crumpling in regret. "I was afraid. I was afraid of what people would say if they saw you, and I couldn't face it." The room fell silent, the weight of Sarah's confession settling over them all. Mia stared at her mother, the woman who had never once shown her love, and saw her for the first time as someone truly broken, as someone who had been consumed by fear. It didn't excuse what she had done, but it gave Mia a glimpse into the pain that had driven Sarah to act the way she had. David, still quiet, finally spoke, his voice low but full of regret. I was wrong too," he admitted, his gaze not meeting anyone's. "I never should have treated you like that. Mia, I always thought I was doing what was best for the family, but I was blinded by my own prejudice. I thought I was protecting you by pushing you away, but all I did was hurt you." Mia's heart wavered, the conflicting emotions pulling her in every direction. She had waited so long to hear these words, but now that they were out in the open, she wasn't sure how to feel. "But we can change," David continued, his voice softer now. "We're sorry. Mia, we want to try. We'll do better. We promise." Sarah nodded, her face streaked with tears. "We'll make things right, Mia. You and Emma. You're our daughters, and we love you. We were just so scared, but we know we were wrong. We'll try. We'll try to be better." The words were out there, raw and heavy. Mia felt them sink deep into her chest. She could hear the sincerity in their voices, but the scars ran deep, and trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. After a long silence, Mia finally spoke, her voice steady. "I don't know if I can just forgive you," she said quietly, "but I'll try. I'll try. For Emma. I'll give you a chance. But only if Angela stays involved. I don't want to go back to that house without her support. I need to know I won't be alone again." Angela nodded in agreement, her gaze unwavering. "Of course. Mia, I'm here. I won't leave you." David and Sarah exchanged a glance, then nodded solemnly. "We understand. We'll do whatever it takes." Mia looked at Emma, who gave her a small, tentative smile. For the first time in a long while, Mia felt the smallest flicker of hope. The road ahead was long, and the wounds were far from healed, but this was a beginning. They had faced the truth, and now they would have to face the consequences together, and maybe, just maybe, they could find their way back to each other. The night before Mia's high school graduation was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt heavy with unspoken words, but also full of potential. After months of tension and healing, the Carter household had begun to change. The cold, oppressive atmosphere that had once dominated the home was beginning to thaw, but it wasn't perfect yet. The cracks were still visible, lurking beneath the surface. Despite their efforts, there was still work to be done. Mia stood in her newly decorated room, looking around. The walls, once bare and cold, were now adorned with framed photos, pictures of her childhood, her friends, and moments she'd shared with Emma. Moments that felt distant but real. A small lamp glowed softly on her bedside table, casting a warm, gentle light across the room. For the first time in years, Mia felt like she had a space that was truly hers. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. Sarah had been the one to suggest the changes: new furniture, new colors, new life for Mia's room. It was her attempt at creating an environment that felt safer, more welcoming, and it was a gesture that didn't go unnoticed. Mia couldn't help but feel the shift. Still, something lingered in the air, something unspoken, a tension that even the warm light couldn't fully chase away. As the evening wore on, Sarah found herself wandering through the house, her eyes scanning the shelves, the pictures, the mementos. She moved into the living room, her gaze falling on a small wooden box on the mantel. It had always been there, collecting dust, but something about it called to her now. She picked it up and opened it, the lid creaking softly. Inside, nestled between old family photos and letters, was a small folded piece of paper. Sarah's heart skipped a beat as she unfolded it, recognizing Mia's handwriting immediately. It was a letter, one she had never seen before. "Dear Mom and Dad, I know I'm not the perfect daughter. I know I'm not what you wanted, but I wish you would love me like you love Emma. I try so hard to be good, but it's never enough. Please, just love me. That's all I want. Please don't forget about me." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The words, written when Mia was just 12, hit her like a wave. She had known, of course, that Mia felt neglected, but to read it in her own daughter's words, so raw and vulnerable, was another thing entirely. Her eyes filled with tears as she read, feeling the weight of the past and the pain she had caused. "Mia," she whispered, her voice breaking as she sank down onto the couch, clutching the letter to her chest. She had never understood the depth of Mia's hurt, never truly realized how much her actions had cut her daughter. David entered the room, sensing something was wrong. When he saw Sarah, her face pale and tear-streaked, he moved to her side immediately. "What is it?" "Sarah," he asked, his voice filled with concern. Sarah didn't answer right away. She handed him the letter instead. As David read it, his face tightened, and he let out a heavy sigh. There was a long pause as they both sat there, the weight of the moment settling around them. Finally, Sarah spoke, her voice trembling. "I've failed her. I've failed both of them." David remained silent for a moment before responding, his tone heavy with regret. "We both have." Sarah's eyes filled with tears once more as she looked up at David. "I was so scared, David. I was so scared of what people would think, of how they'd see us, and I let that fear control everything. I hurt Mia. I hurt her so badly." David's eyes softened, and he reached out to take Sarah's hand. "I know, Sarah. We both let our fears blind us to what was right in front of us." The silence between them was thick, but it wasn't filled with anger this time. It was filled with understanding, with the realization that they had both been wrong. After a moment, Sarah wiped her eyes and looked at David. "I need to fix this," she said, her voice resolute. "I need to show Mia that I love her, that she matters to me, but I don't know where to start." David nodded slowly. "We'll start by listening. We'll start by being there, even if it's not perfect. We'll show her we can change." Sarah stood up, wiping away the last of her tears. "I'll go to her," she said, determination in her eyes. "I need to tell her. I need to apologize for everything." Mia was upstairs when Sarah knocked on her door. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew the moment had come. Mia opened the door, and for a moment, neither of them spoke. Sarah's eyes were still red from the tears, but there was something different in her gaze, a quiet sincerity. "Mia," Sarah began, her voice gentle but firm, "I read your letter, and I am so sorry. I've hurt you in ways I never even realized, and for that, I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it right." Mia didn't say anything at first. She simply stood there, taking in the apology, the weight of her mother's words settling in. It was the first time Sarah had ever apologized like this, truly and without reservation. "I was so afraid of what people might think," Sarah continued. "I was afraid of what they'd say about you, about us. But that was no excuse. I hurt you, and I'll never forgive myself for that. But I want to make it up to you. Mia, please, let me try." Mia stood still, her emotions swirling. She had waited for this moment for so long, and yet, she still wasn't sure if she could fully trust it. She had learned not to expect change from her parents, but now, looking at her mother seeing her vulnerability, Mia felt something stir inside her. "I don't know if I can just forgive you," Mia said softly, "but I'm willing to try. I'll give you a chance. If you really mean it." Sarah nodded, her eyes filled with hope. "I do, Mia, I really do." Meanwhile, downstairs, David's frustration had returned. He had been brooding since Sarah had left to talk to Mia. As the evening wore on, his old habits began to resurface. "Mia, you've done well, but your grades aren't perfect," he said when she entered the living room later that night. His voice was harsh again, the frustration he often felt bubbling to the surface. "You need to do better if you want to have a future." Mia's blood boiled. She had already fought for so much, fought for her worth, fought for love, fought for respect. She wasn't going to let her father's old ideas drag her back. "No," she said firmly, her voice steady and confident. "I'm not going to let you define me by my grades anymore. I'm worth more than that, and I deserve better than your constant criticism." David stared at her, taken aback by her response. There was a long silence before he sighed heavily, lowering his gaze. "You're right, Mia. I'm sorry. I've been too hard on you." Mia felt a small weight lift from her shoulders. It wasn't a complete victory, but it was a step in the right direction. In the quiet that followed, Mia found herself thinking about Emma, who had made a choice of her own. Emma had decided to name her baby Ava Lily Carter, a name that honored both Angela and Mia. It was a gesture of love, a bridge between them all. Ethan, too, had committed to being there for Emma, working part-time to support their growing family. They were all learning to stand together, to support each other. Mia was still cautious, but a small part of her began to believe in the possibility of healing. Her parents were trying imperfectly, slowly, but trying, and for the first time in a long while, Mia allowed herself to imagine a future where the scars could finally begin to heal. The journey wasn't over, but Mia knew one thing for sure: they were on the right path. The day of Mia's high school graduation was chaotic, emotions high, the air thick with excitement. Yet, in the midst of all the noise, there was something softer, something more profound that wove through the day. In the bustling hospital room, the smell of antiseptic was sharp, yet it was mixed with the sweetness of new life, new hope. Emma was in labor, and Mia stood by her side, her graduation gown still on, its fabric crinkling as she shifted restlessly. The nurses moved quickly around them, but there was no mistaking the joy that hung in the air, no mistaking the love that pulsed between the family members gathered in that small, sterile room. David and Sarah, now far from the cold, distant parents they once were, stood nearby. They had made so many mistakes, and there was still much they needed to do, but today, they were here, present for the birth of their granddaughter. Ethan, with his hand tightly gripping Emma's, was there too nervous but determined, ready to step into his role as a father. Angela, ever the steady rock, stood by Mia's side, her smile reassuring. The circle of love around Emma was palpable, and for the first time, Mia felt the fullness of it. She glanced down at her watch. It was almost time. Mia's heart raced in anticipation. She had spent so long healing from the wounds of her childhood, but today, as she watched her sister in pain, yet filled with determination, something inside her clicked. She wasn't the scared little girl anymore. She was someone's protector now. A soft cry echoed through the room, followed by the sounds of laughter and congratulatory cheers. Emma's face broke into a exhausted but radiant smile as the nurse gently placed the tiny bundle in her arms. Mia's breath caught in her throat as she looked down at her niece, Ava Lily Carter. The name was a tribute to the women who had helped shape Emma's world, to Angela, and to Mia. Tears welled in Mia's eyes as she stepped forward, still in her graduation robe, her hands trembling with emotion. Emma looked up at her, and in that moment, the distance between them seemed to vanish. "She's beautiful," Mia whispered, her voice cracking. Emma smiled through her tears. "She's perfect, just like you said she'd be." Mia's heart swelled as she carefully took Ava into her arms. The baby was so small, her little face scrunched up in that adorable newborn way. For a moment, Mia could only hold her, overwhelmed with love. She could feel the weight of the promise she had made to herself. She would protect this little girl. Ava would never feel the kind of abandonment Mia had known. Mia leaned down to whisper, her voice soft and full of love. "You'll never be alone, Ava. I'll protect you from all the things I've gone through. You'll never feel like you don't belong." It wasn't just a promise. It was a vow. Ava was their future, and Mia was ready to stand guard for her, ready to ensure she would never feel the way Mia once had unwanted, unloved, like she was always the outsider. As the day wore on, Emma's strength began to shine through in a way Mia hadn't expected. She watched her sister hold Ava, her face filled with a newfound maturity, the weight of motherhood settling on her shoulders. It wasn't easy, and there were still so many unknowns, but Emma was no longer the carefree girl she once was. She was a mother now, and her love for Ava was evident in every movement, every glance. David and Sarah had made significant strides, though their journey was far from over. After the birth of Ava, they had worked tirelessly to rebuild their relationship with Mia and Emma. They had converted their office into a bright, cheerful nursery for Ava, painting the walls a soft yellow, the color Emma had always loved. It was their way of showing their commitment to change, to being better parents, better grandparents. But the change wasn't just in the house. David and Sarah had also started family therapy, working on their relationship with each other and with their children. It wasn't easy. There were still moments when the old fears crept in, when their insecurities bubbled to the surface. But each session, each step forward, brought them closer to the family they had all been yearning for. Mia was hesitant, still unsure of whether the changes were truly lasting, but she allowed herself to believe. She saw how much effort they were putting in, how much they were trying to heal the wounds they had inflicted. It wasn't perfect, but Mia had learned that perfection wasn't necessary. What mattered was the effort, the willingness to be vulnerable, to admit mistakes, and to do the hard work of change. Emma, now with a baby to care for, began to blossom into the role of mother. It wasn't always easy. The weight of the responsibility sometimes felt like too much to bear, but she was learning, growing, and embracing this new chapter in her life. She found herself turning to Mia more often for advice, for support, and for reassurance. Their bond, strained for so long, was beginning to heal. Emma no longer felt like she had to be perfect, and that was liberating. Mia stood by her sister, ready to be the protector she had always wanted to be. She wasn't just protecting Ava now, she was protecting her own family. She was helping to create a new generation of love, one that didn't carry the same painful burdens of the past. Later that evening, after the hustle and bustle had quieted down and the room had emptied, Mia sat alone with Ava, gently rocking her in her arms. The baby's tiny hands gripped her finger, and Mia smiled, the warmth in her chest growing. For the first time in a long time, Mia allowed herself to feel peace. The room was still, save for the soft sound of Ava's breathing. Mia whispered, more to herself than to the baby. "You'll never feel like I did. I'll make sure of that." In the quiet of the hospital room, under the soft glow of the overhead lights, Mia finally felt the weight of her journey lift. There had been pain, yes, and there would be more ahead. But for now, there was hope, a hope that perhaps, With love, anything could heal. Family didn't have to be perfect. It just had to try. And in this moment, that was enough. As Mia looked down at her niece, she knew that Ava would be the key to their future. The love they had for her, the love that was now flowing freely, would bind them together. It was the kind of love that could heal, that could bring light to even the darkest places. And with that thought, Mia smiled. The future was no longer uncertain. It was full of love, full of hope, and full of promise. And that, she knew, was all they needed.